In this video, I want to help you to not go insane in the practice room. If you enjoy this video, be sure to check out some of the other videos on the channel because I've made over 50 videos already, which seems totally crazy to me. And also, if you want to see all the videos I make in the future, which means a new one every Saturday, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and you can hit that bell to get notified. So I want to talk to you about how to practice with a purpose, and there's a lot of information out there about deliberate practice, and if you do some research on deliberate practicing, it's really useful and helpful information, and that's sort of what I mean by having a purpose when you practice. The opposite of having a purpose when you're practicing is what I call insane practicing. This comes from that good saying that I'm sure you've heard that goes, if you do the same thing over and over expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity. I find that people do that all the time when they're practicing. They'll be playing through whatever piece of music they're working on and are like, you know, I don't like how this went, and they try it again and basically do the same thing and they still don't like it, and they just keep doing it over and over and over, and basically are being insane because they're practicing the same piece and expecting things to improve, but not having any purpose and not doing anything deliberately different to make it improve. First, I want to give you a little demonstration of what this sort of insane practicing looks like. So this is just like the first phrase from one of the movements from Mozart's Serenade No. 10 in B flat. And I'm going to demonstrate what it's like to be insane practicing, where you're just repeating over and over and over and hoping that it's going to get better. And then I'm going to talk about some strategies to actually improve and start practicing with purpose. So I imagine that's probably sort of similar to what your practicing may sound like at times, and you may even end up doing a larger section than that. I'm practicing this as an excerpt from this for an audition that I'm taking, so the excerpt is really only a couple lines longer than that, so I could definitely see myself and other people just running the excerpt over and over and over and hoping things will just get better each time they do it. But there's actually a much better and much more productive way of going about practicing something like this. And that's what I call practicing with a purpose. And it's a very small change. It's still going to be basically the same process of repeating it over and over and over. But the one thing that we're going to change is that each time I repeat it, I'm going to focus on something else and see if I can make those each different aspects of it better each time I practice it. So let me try that again, and this time I'm going to practice on the articulation to see if I can get really nice light staccatos on all of those staccato eighth notes that are in here. So that was better, and you can see where I'm also implementing the 3 I's of practicing, where I identified where those staccato eighth notes were that I was trying to improve, and I isolated them and improved them, and then I integrated it all back together to make sure I could do it all in context and still get that same nice articulation and staccato. I think when I was doing it all back together in context and integrating it all back together, I think it wasn't quite as good as when I isolated it, so it might be worth doing that again and doing a couple more repetitions with that as my focus. But just to demonstrate this practicing with a purpose, I'm going to change to a new purpose now so I don't get stuck just being a crazy person practicing the articulation over and over and over and expecting it to get better. So the next thing I'm going to focus on is the phrasing. I think that was a much more interesting musical phrase than I was doing before. I was able to bring out some notes that I wanted to emphasize, some areas where there's some harmonic tension. I was able to get dee, da, 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 have a little bit less on the repeated eighth notes, and it was just a much more interesting line that time. So that was good that I was able to focus on that and get that. Now I'm going to show just one more other sort of purpose that I can focus on, and that's going to be to play everything really rhythmically even and make sure that my fingers are moving smoothly. And again, this would be a great thing to do with a metronome. I won't demonstrate how to do it with a metronome right now, but this would be something really good to do with a metronome to practice everything being really even and smooth. So again, you can see how I'm using some techniques to simplify this when I'm isolating and improving things. I'm going slower. I'm thinking about how my fingers are moving. Every single time I go to play something, I have something as specific as possible and something really concrete that I want to focus on. Now finally, I'm going to play through this phrase just a couple more times, but I'm going to tell you what I'm focusing on each time. So this might be more what it's like in real time, is that each time I go through it, I'm going to be thinking about something different, and I might even still isolate things and think about some specific things on the parts that I'm isolating. But I'm just going to go through sort of like in real time as if I was practicing this, but before every single repetition, I'm going to tell you out loud what I'm going to be focusing on for that version. So this first rep, I'm going to sort of practice performing it and see what comes out and be really, really paying close attention to anything that I don't like and anything I want to improve. So I'm going to do this next one. I'm going to focus on the articulation again. I think that's sort of gone away from when I practiced that the first time, so I'm going to hone in on that articulation. Yeah, the articulation was really nice that time. This time I'm going to focus on just getting that very first note to sound good. Yeah, I still want a little bit more air support behind that note and make sure I really am feeling what it's going to feel like before it comes out. So I had some of those articulations were exploding out, so I want to fix that. I'm going to isolate that articulation because I'm still having trouble getting it to be really predictable. And this sort of goes along with what I'm working on with the first note, to have every note knowing what it's going to feel like and come out reliably. So I'm thinking less tongue, more reliance on the air, less reliance on the embouchure, just setting, being steady, and letting the air get those notes to come out. Yeah, I like that. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning and put that together. Incidentally, I was also thinking about the phrasing a little bit that time, and I think that came out well. So I think that time I was pretty happy with how that went through. So I hope you're seeing how detailed and specific, and how really every time I played something, there was something really specific that I was going after and trying to improve and solidify. Now I just want to add in a couple other little ideas that are actually really important for doing this. So this was all sort of in that like isolating and improving phase of things where I was getting really specific and really drilling down onto the little details that I wanted to fix. There's also the bigger integrating and practicing performing part of things, and that's where you do have to be a little bit insane, but it's not doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. It's actually maybe the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over so you can get the same results every time. And that's what really makes truly professional musicians, is that they're able to be really consistent. They figure out all the details they want, they isolate it and hone in on those and get those down, and then they're able to reproduce that every single time they play it. And the only way to do that is just practice a lot, the little specific things, and get those exactly how you want, and then practice a lot of it all together, making sure that all of those details still come across. And the final super important thing for practicing with a purpose is you have to actually know the music separate from the clarinet. When we're practicing the clarinet, it's all about getting the instrument to make the music. So that's what I'm talking about with using more air, being lighter with my tongue, just having my embouchure being steady, getting the articulation the way that I want, getting the fingers to move evenly through the 16th notes. That all has to do with how I'm playing the clarinet. But I have to know how the music goes so I can have an idea of what I want the clarinet to sound like. It's super possible to play this in a completely different style, and the clarinet's playing still is pretty okay, but it's not right at all. And that might go something like this. So you can hear in that there's some like really weird phrasing things. If I played that, you might not guess it's Mozart, as compared to the first way I played it, where it has some of those stylistic, characteristic Mozart things and classical music things happening in it. And that's why it's important to listen to reference recordings to know how things go, study the music for yourself, understand what it means to stylistically play Mozart versus Beethoven versus Brahms versus Stravinsky. Those are all very different things, even if you're looking at the same ink on the page, pretty much. So you want to have an idea of how it goes, really know the tempo that you want to go, so that when you're practicing, you're just working on getting the instrument to make the music go the way that you want the music to go. Awesome, that's all I have for this video. Make sure that you are learning your music and you know how the music goes, and then when you're practicing that on the clarinet, make sure that you have a purpose to every repetition that you do, so you're not just going insane, doing the same thing over and over and over, and just hoping that it's gonna get better. If you really are deliberate about having these specific things that you want to improve, then you're gonna improve much, much faster. And finally, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. That really helps me out to know what kind of videos you guys are interested in, so I can know to make more super awesome, helpful clarinet content for you. And go ahead and share it with somebody who you think would get some help out of this. There's so many people who just bang their head against the wall in the practice room, just doing the same thing over and over and over and hoping it'll get better. And I really think that this video can help those people. So if you found it helpful for yourself, chances are that one of your clarinet playing colleagues and friends will find it helpful for them as well. So give it a share, and let's get as many people learning how to play the clarinet right now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.